गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। As 2025 ends, I'm very convinced that China is running out of steam. Uh, I've been doing these such kind of videos for a long time. You might say, "Oh, this General Saab is old. He doesn't know what's happening." Yeah, all that. But I've examined China from many different points of view. They all point to the same thing: a decline. It's not fashionable to call China in decline these days because there are a whole lot of people whose livelihoods and whose wealth and all is fixed on China. And if China declines, they'll go down the drain. And hence, they won't like to call China declining, running out of steam, recession. They'll give diplomatic, oh, it's slowing down. Oh, it's got some problems. That. But I am not that way. Look at it very pragmatically. There's something which I read somewhere in my research, and I just picked that sentence up. It's very conclusive. History offers no record of economies that have recorded 5% real GDP growth while facing years of persistent deflation, as China has for 10 consecutive quarters. It's been facing deflation for 10 quarters, and yet it is growing at 5%. Prices are falling, no jobs, no this thing, and yet it is. How can it happen, right? Uh, I don't think that's logical, and I've always said so till I saw this, and I said, let me share it with all of you. Okay, uh, last year in February, General Narayanan and I did a program called the Slow Collapse of China. We said China is collapsing. The collapse started then. We were quite convinced about it. Right? It's only that this collapse was slow. It's not going to be a thing that one day China will crash and go. That won't happen. I'm very clear about it. 1.4 billion people, or even if it's reduced to 1 billion, are not going to run away. They're going to be there. They're not going to run away anywhere. Okay? And when I talk of collapse of China, it is a fact that China will still be a power, but it won't be the power which we today perceive it to be, or yesterday we expected it to be. It's more of a Japanese type of collapse, stagnation, and all that. 10 days back, I did this other video called China has slipped into a recession. I didn't ask that question, has China slipped into a recession? I made a statement, China has slipped into a recession. People didn't agree with me. Many people. But today, people are talking of it openly. And we'll hear a clip later which talks of China and recession. So today, what I'm going to do is, as the year ends, I'm not going to justify whether China is collapsing or it's running out of steam or it's gone into a recession or all that. I'm going to show you some figures. I'm going to show you some graphs which tell their own story. And that's what we will do. There's this article. It's a very good article in Guardian. It says why peak China may have finally arrived. It's by George Magnus. George Magnus is very good. He analyzes China very well. He's an economist. He teaches it one of in UK, right? And UK has got very good institutions. He's one in one of the better institutions. And I think he's wrong. He says why peak China may have finally arrived. I think peak China has already arrived and gone. It's behind. It's already behind by a year. That's why I said slow collapse of China in last year. Both of us went over it. There's no doubt. We should not have any doubts in our mind as to how China has dominated certain, right? How China has, dominated certain, areas. It's unquestioned, almost unrivaled success in certain areas. Have a look at it. Whether it's basic metals, electronic equipment, electrical equipment, machinery, chemicals, computers and electronics, fabricated metals, motor vehicles, pharmaceuticals, other transportation, IT and information services. No one can touch it. There is no question. No one is near it. But yet, this country is running out of steam. It lies in the imbalance in this system, right? To put it in perspective, this is a very interesting graphic which I came across. I thought I must share with all of you. Have a look at this and I'll explain it. And I'll explain it to you. Mao Zedong era, 50s to the 70s. In the initial stages, China was growing at about 9.6%, right? In the 60s, when the Cultural Revolution was on, growth had gone down to 2.1%. In the 70s, the time of political change in China, right? The Great Leap Forward and things like that. In fact, it was post-cultural revolution. To a certain extent, China started recovering and it recorded 5.4% growth. Then came the Deng Xiaoping era. The Deng Xiaoping era started in the mid 70s and lasted till the 90s, right? And market reforms, loosening, that a season of it doesn't matter which color the cat is as far as it catches the mice type. It went to 8.9%, 9% growth rates, followed by the Zheng Jiamin and the Hu Jintao era, where it went soaring 9, 8, 9, 10%, and it was on the roll, right? And then comes Xi Jinping. The moment Xi Jinping got into the thing, it, the whole country went back to Maoism, went back to communism, and the growth rates have started to fall, right? And this is how it is. Income started growing on what you see in dollars. There's no doubt about it. But overall GDP started to fall. In the 20s, as per estimate, I mean, if you agree to what the Chinese say, then there's no argument with me. But independent assessments say that in the 20s, the, all these years, growth has averaged around 3 to 3.5% real growth. So you see, GDP growth has slowed down drastically. Okay, and if you go to Rhodium Group, Rhodium Group is someone who's working on China in a big way. They make a very hard assessment on with all inputs, and they give reasons for it, right? And they say the real GDP growth, if we see NBS is their national service of China, right? Uh, this NBS, which is shown here, is of the Chinese thing. In 2024, real GDP growth as per China was 5%. The Rhodium Group puts it at 2.4 to 2.8%. 2025, China says they've grown at 5.2%. That's where they're zeroing on to. End of this year, they'll come, oh, got 5.2%. We're very happy. We aimed at 5, we've got 5.2. Right? But the Rhodium Group says they've gone at only 2.8 to 3%. So if you see, go by this table, household consumption, right? Last year it was supposed to be 2.1%. Actually, it's hardly 1.3 to 1.6%. This year it is supposed to be 2, it's just about 1.7. And the thing is, next year in 2026, the forecast is even lower. And by China's own admission, they say that GDP won't grow beyond 4.5%. So obviously, something's happening in China which are inexplicable, right? So there is a problem. And I might as well tell you something else. The net of these exports, where China is untouchable, is just about 10 to 15% of its manufacturing base. The rest 85% is hemorrhaging. That's something which we is not told to us. It doesn't come out unless you see the hard numbers. It's like what General Rajiv Narayanan said the other day. Empty containers go from one port to the other. So if it's gone, it has clogged, it has taken something. Coming back, it has brought something back. It is like that, zero mileage second-hand cars. A new car is sold, it doesn't move, it is sold. It is kept in the yard, right? It is sold at a thing on paper. Then again, it is resold. It's zero mileage to a guy at discount. So the car is sold twice. So one car is sold twice, or rather, it is shown as two cars sold. And that car is sold at a discount. But actual on paper, in the first sale, it is shown at X. Second sale, it is shown as X minus something. So GDP is gone up. So China is into those kind of tricks. Big time. Big time. Right? So that's the problem. So if you look at these figures, and Rhodium Group has specialized in looking through these figures, whether it's household consumption or government consumption or gross capital formation, everything. Look at gross capital formation. It is negative. So things are not great in China. Working age population. This is a very complicated and an interesting graphic. It took me a long time to understand. Okay. Here, let me explain it to you. This business of T is important. Okay. T is the year, like from here T to minus 20, okay, and T to plus 20 years. This is in years. T minus 20 and T plus 20. T is the year in which an economy's per capita GDP surpassed the level of China's per capita real GDP in 2019. So for each country, it varies. In 2019, right? I mean, look at it that way. Yeah, in 2019, if the per capita GDP of, say, Korea crossed that of, uh, you know, China, right? I won't say 2019. Let's put it this way. Let's say per capita GDP of China is X. Okay, at this point of time. Some years back, when many years back, the Japanese per capita income would have been X, which is that year. Today, which is this year. On this year, you plot the working age population graph. What is it available? When did it peak out, and all that? And for Japan also, from that year you put it. And for Japan, you put it on the time when the per capita income was the same. Was it growing? Lessing. Now, what comes out of this is this. They compared China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. At a time when all their per capita incomes were the same, they got this in the same line. You found that by the time the per capita income was this here, you see that other countries had a headwind, except Japan. Whether it's Korea, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, the working age population was still growing at an equivalent stage of per capita income. Japan started flattening out, and that goes back to 91, 92, the time of Plaza Accords. Okay, that's why they went back 20 years. China had started declining. China is the only country which is on a decline at a particular per capita income. At the same per capita income, the other countries for the next 5, 10 years, their populations kept growing. That is the problem with China. There's no inflation. Inflation, consumer price index, everything is almost zero. Okay. There's yet another interesting graphic. This graphic tells you that what, you know, for to produce GDP 1%, 2%, 3%, your efficiency of your economy depends on how much you spend to get that profit and loss, or how much you need to spend to make 1% of GDP. This is the graph for China. Look at it here. Okay. China had to spend hell of a lot to get 1% growth in GDP. And from 2021 onwards, it's flattened out. You can keep spending, the GDP doesn't grow. Or it grows by very little. Okay. It's an incremental capital to output ratio. So you keep putting capital, there's no output. मुनाफा नहीं है. ठीक है. Then same thing, credit intensity. How much ever credit you put, you debt load. You load debt into the system, hoping that GDP will come up. It isn't coming up. Okay, see, incremental increase in GDP. That's the red one. Incremental increase in debt. So there's more debt, but the GDP is not rising. Initially, for a lesser amount of debt, the GDP went up. Now you get well a lot of debt. GDP is not growing. Look at this. The gray ones are the debt. The red lines are the GDP. So, good old, if you are an economist, I've never read economy till recently. I learned economy later in my life. But they say there's something called a law of diminishing marginal returns. That's happening in China. Okay. Then this gross fixed capital as a percentage of GDP is on the x axis. And on the y axis is household consumption. Okay. For all other country, it is here. When you take the gross fixed capital formation, say that is the lagat in fundamental terms, in layman's terms. What is the consumption in China? You see, in China in 2002, it was at about 44-45%. By 2022, it had gone down to about 40%. 2012, it was less than 40%. So from 2002 to this thing, it's gone down to 2012. I mean, it's gone down and little recovered by 2022, but it's still at 40% consumption. Our country is about 65%. Look at other countries, it's about 70%. If you have to go up the value chain, your consumption has to improve. And consumption is not there in China. And there is no way, and this consumption can improve. And there are reasons for it. If you have to improve consumption, you have to put money in the hands of the people. If you put money in the hands of the people, The subsidies which you give to the factories have to be given to the people, right? If subsidies are given to the people to buy and there are no subsidies on items, then the cost of the item will go up naturally. If the cost of the item is not will go up, people might not buy. Then it will become competitive. In which case, the guy with who's got money might not even buy a item. That's one thing. The problem with China, the problem with China is each household is so much indebted in debt that if you give him money, he'll square the debt. He'll go and repay his debt and be happy. He'll get off debt because he can't afford to pay the mortgages. So if you the problem Chinese economy faces, or China or Xi Jinping, whoever faces is, everyone says consumption increase karo, and for consumption you have to give money to the people. Now, if China gives money to people to consume, and they go and square the debts off, okay, the money is gone nowhere. The subsidy is not there in the industry. Industry collapses, consumption collapses, China will collapse. So China can't make consumption happen. If China can't make consumption happen, this is a trick here. If China can't make consumption happen, right? If there's no consumption and there is overproduction and overcapacity, that has to be exported. Now, if that overcapacity is exported, it has to be subsidized. Otherwise, it will not sell. That's one part of the story. The other part of the story is if you have to export all those items to another country, that country's industry in that particular goods is gone. And the money you're subsidizing, you're getting from your people ultimately. So China is on a path where its economy is not going to go up, but definitely if we open our market will collapse. If I have to buy this glass from China and at a cheaper rate than what is sold here, I will buy the Chinese one and forget this. Soon the guy who's making the glass here will vanish. And that is what has happened to many of our industries already. I'll give you an example. Near Agra, there's a place called Firozabad. Everyone knows it. Firozabad once had some of the best glass industry in fact, India. The glass industry of India was in Firozabad. It still is. Oh, 8 years back, I went to Agra and went to Firozabad. Firozabad is about 50 kilometers away from Agra. You could get anything in glass, but it was from China. So I asked that guy, I said, "You're a traditional guy who is into glass." He says, "Sir, why should I make a glass, anything in glass, when China is giving it to me at 50% that rate?" So I said, "What happened to all the glass industry?" He says, "We still sell glass, but it's Chinese." And then, I had a long chat with him. So he says that today all that this glass industry which is left in Agra is bangles because Chinese don't make bangles for some reason. Okay, and they don't make bangles which are required by India and whatever. So they make bangles and some other items which is not they don't get from China. The rest, every glass item comes from China. Now just think if that is applicable to X, Y, Z, and all that, and our industry starts packing up, आत्मनिर्भरता कहाँ से आएगा? आप कंज्यूम तो करोगे, कंज्यूम करके चाइना वाले को पैसा दोगे, चाइना का इकोनॉमी चलेगा, आपका इकोनॉमी बंद हो जाएगा. At a point of time, we were self-sufficient for API. We had a good API base. Largely API was based in Gujarat and Bombay, that belt. We had very good chemical industries. API is all chemical industries. And we had a very good drug in this thing. In comes China, you allowed China to get in. They undercut your prices. Your pharma industry grew, but your API gone. So resultant what? You are now dependent on China for API. So what happens then? Your industry is gone, your economy is gone. India has a huge economy, you can still take the shock. What about a small country like, say, Sri Lanka, or look at Pakistan? Why do you think Pakistan will never come up? Because everything from China is put into Pakistan. See, डूबते को तिनके का सहारा चाहिए. Pakistan doesn't produce anything. So anyone who exports to him is prepared to take. And China is prepared to export everything to Pakistan, even if it's on debt basis. Since China is exporting into Pakistan everything, and today they have no choice but to take it. Okay? Pakistan industry will never come up. So Pakistan will never go up. We should thank China for wrecking Pakistan. So this cycle, they're stuck because they can't consume. If they consume, they have a problem. If they don't consume, they have a problem. I mean, they have no method of getting that consumption going. We'll discuss this consumption because the crux of reviving China's economy lies in its people, and the people are not doing it. It's not in everything else. India, its GDP, everything is growing because of people. I mean, let's be very clear. It's not because of Modi ji or Modi ji is very good, Rahul Gandhi is very bad. That is not the equation. The equation is you and I are the ones who are consuming and making this economy grow. Yes, the government is giving better policies than before. There's no doubt about it. Okay. Look at the property markets. See this fully. Look at the property markets. Okay. This is the completions. Okay. This is from January 20 to now. And look at it till 26 because property is something you can predict. You can predict because a building has started, it has to have a end line of completion. So you can predict better. Trend lines are better. And if you look at it, look at new starts. No one is starting construction in China. Look at it, just collapsed. Sales collapsed. Completion down. The least. It can never. So people are not completing. There are no sales, no completion, no new start. So if that is not there, cement factory is down, steel is down, copper is down, wiring is all copper. See the ripple effect of property. And in any country, why is our consumption very good? Because our property sector is very good today. Our property is not on a boom like it was once upon a time, but it is growing healthy. We are not in a slump. Mr. Trump is selling his towers in Bombay. So now, if your sales are down, costs are down, valuations are down. Valuations are down as much as 50-60%. So if I had my house, which I took on a mortgage 5 years back, at a particular level, I have to repay the mortgage to maintain that house. That house, if I don't want, I don't know, I'm in debt. I don't have a job. I can't sell my house because it's gone down. What do I do? I can't have a baby. That was my saving. My saving is gone down by 50-60%. Why will I go and buy a fridge? I have to pay to maintain that house. I don't have a I don't have money for mortgage. So if this is going to keep going down, who will consume? And contrary to many people, what they say, there is no way this property bubble is going to go up, or rather, the property slump is going to go up. It's not going to reverse. Till 2030, just forget it. Uske baad, also it will not, because by then the population decline effect will start taking in. Today, China is the only country which has more houses than people. The people need. If the number of houses, they say about 25% more, unsold property built up is lying, ghost property. 25% more than the requirement. As it is, you are in a dull market, उसमें उतना excess leverage है, तो जाएगा कहाँ? सड़ जाएगा 4-5 साल में. Okay, look at this residential property price and residential property price secondary market. First, primary market and secondary, that is new and old. Look at this, how much it has gone down. It's, this is very, and this is in the past 2 years. Secondary market has gone to 20% down from its peak. So there's no resale value. Okay. And you see the number of, right? This is, of course, National Bureau of Statistics. These are all this thing. What is the amount of housing which is being built? This is new built up areas. You're going down. Housing though is complete washout. Okay, just listen to this. You will understand what I'm saying. This is in Chinese. This is something I okay. Have a look at this.
History always repeats itself. Today, China's land finance has collapsed. The real estate bubble has burst. Local finances are generally tight, and even Beijing's economy is in trouble. Beijing has always been considered the last bastion of the Chinese economy, not
Beijing's economy is in trouble, residential economy. That's the point this lady is making.
because of industrial vitality, but because it is the center of power and resources. As long as Beijing is stable, the market believes that China still has a trump card. But now, housing prices in the core area of this power center have fallen by 40%, which is not just a fluctuation in the real estate market, but a collapse of confidence. It symbolizes that the last psychological defense line of the Chinese economy has been broken. This is a turning point in an era. What have the houses in Beijing that we bought 3 years ago fallen to now? I checked the latest housing prices in our area on the website and asked about the latest transaction price, and I feel quite uneasy. In 2022, we bought a house in Beijing, and at that time, we were considering renting a house for a month after the child was born. They were earning 5 or 6,000 yuan, but they also had to move, and with a child, they had a lot of belongings, so moving was always a hassle. They thought that if they could earn a little more, they could keep up with the mortgage payments, so they decided to buy a house in Beijing. She said that at that time, her pregnancy symptoms were very severe, and she couldn't go house hunting with her husband. Her husband would leave early every day, looking at houses from morning till night, and then share all the information with her when he got home. At the time, they felt that house prices had dropped compared to previous years, so they wanted to buy quickly, otherwise, the prices might rise again. They bought a house in less than a month. As a result, not long after they bought it, the price really did rise again. At the time, they secretly congratulated themselves, thinking they were lucky to have bought early, otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to afford it. They didn't expect that house prices would start falling continuously from last year. This year, the drop is even more frightening. 3 years have passed in the blink of an eye, and they have probably lost more than 700,000 yuan. She lamented how long it would take for a working person to earn that much money. It's so difficult for ordinary people to make money now. One wrong move and everything is gone. A netizen named Guju Xiaoyingza said that their house price dropped from over 3 million.
So what you see such stories all over China. Okay, I will not waste time. Let's go ahead. Right? I'll leave this. Look at the China as a proportion of global investment and consumption. Very interesting graph again. Have a look closely. Okay. As part of the global investment, you see the investment is going down. Right? What is the issue of China as a part of global consumption? It is here. Chinese consumption is also going down. In the international thing, their economy is not moving in the right direction. Neither there is investment nor consumption as part of the global thing. Whether you look at it conservatively or optimistically. Credit. How people are taking credit. You see, in the economy moves by credit. A lot of people go to bank, take credit. If I'm a guy who is in a low income job, I want to buy a scooter, I go to take credit either from the bank or loan facility or some non-banking finance corporation or someone like that. That's how it is. Look at that. What's happening here? See the loan to households. Households are just not taking loans because they can't take on loans. They can't repay. So if households don't take loans and households can't repay, there's no consumption. Okay. Same thing for retail sales, subsidized goods and unsubsidized goods and everything. Everything is going in the wrong direction. Consumption is the enduring engine of economic growth. That is what the Chinese, masters are saying. But on ground, on ground, it's not happening. It's not happening. Right? So, okay, just let me read it out. You'll understand. History indicates that it is extremely difficult for a low consumption economy to raise its consumption share meaningfully without a slowdown or even contraction in GDP growth. And yet, Beijing is determined to prevent GDP growth from slowing. You can't. So, if you think China will recover without GDP contraction, it won't. If GDP contracts, political problems. Right? In theory, it is possible to rebalance without that slowdown by engineering a rapid acceleration in consumption growth. Okay, but while this is what every rebalancing country wants to do, none has ever managed it, including so far China, who has tried for years to precisely do this. So, what can they do differently this time? One possibility is to allow central government debt to rise much faster than it has in the past, as subsidies are directed not just to production but also to consumption. So you give to for consumption and for production. Give both subsidy. That means your debt will go up, right? Already Chinese debt is at about 300%, so they can't take on debt. The other way is take money from local governments and give it to people, but then the government share will fall. They can't. If the government share falls, then the government is tied up, and no government will want to give money to people, and a communist government never. Or there's some technological breakthrough and the productivity growth in China increases, which everyone wants. No dumping. Everyone goes to China and say, please give it to us. That's not happening. So any way you look at China, whichever way you look at China, this consumption is not taking off. I found this very interesting video, okay, about Beijing. It's by a chap called Ken Cow, the China Crash Chronicle. He stayed in China. He appears to be a Japanese, or he could be a Japanese, a Chinese, an American, I don't know. But I've come across a few of his videos. Very interesting. This is a video about Beijing, but it represents the whole of China and where China is. So just hear what he says. Okay. He is talking of the shocking collapse of China's capital. So just hear what he says.
I've lived in Beijing for many years when it was alive, a city with swagger. You could feel it in the air. Neon lights in Sanlitun, street hawkers yelling over the smell of late night skewers, businessmen closing deals over Peking duck at 2 a.m., diplomats brushing shoulders with hustlers who could sell you anything from fake Gucci bags to factory contracts. Now, it is a ghost city with propaganda posters. Beijing in 2025 is so dead. You can hear your own footsteps echo off glass towels that once pulsed with life. And here's your smoking gun. Restaurant profits collapsed 88% last year. That's not a dip. That's a comma. This isn't just bad luck. It is not some random downturn. It is the result of years of self inflicted political and economic own goals, where every so called reform kicked the legs out from under the city's own economy. I remember Sanlitun at its peak, Beijing's fashion and nightlife capital. You couldn't walk 10 feet without bumping into someone famous, half famous, or at least pretending to be. Today, a fifth tier city's vegetable market has more action on a Saturday night. Liangmaqiao, once Beijing's version of the Seine River, full of joggers, diplomats, and art exhibitions, is now a dead zone. The white collar expats gone. Middle Eastern merchants gone. This isn't just about fewer foreigners. It's about Beijing losing its cosmopolitan engine. Those people didn't just drink cocktails, they signed deals, built networks, brought in money, and added to the city's cultural mix. Now, let's talk about the broken legs of Beijing's economy. Beijing used to stand on six legs: tech, finance, education, culture, foreign investment, and tourism. Four of them are now broken, and the other two are limping. First off, tech. Beijing's Haidian was once the Silicon Valley of China. Baidu, ByteDance, Didi, all crammed into glass towels, competing for talent. But when political royalty replaced innovation as the top KPI, the air went out of the room. Crackdowns, endless rectification campaigns, and a censorship regime that makes creativity a liability drove startups, overseas. Layoffs piled up. The young, ambitious engineers, many are gone, replaced by risk-averse paper pushers whose main skill is keeping their head down. Next, finance in Xicheng district. Beijing's financial heart used to hum. Now it's a hollow shell. Overregulation smothered deal making, and even the regulators took massive pay cuts, 30 to 50%. Those six-figure bankers who used to drop 3,000 yuan on a Friday night dinner, they're staying home, watching their wallets. And when high earners stop spending, the ripple hits every luxury store and every fine dining restaurant. Then the meltdown of the education sector. In Haidian district, tutoring crackdown wasn't just a reform, It was an economic nuke. Giants like New Oriental fired 60,000 staff and lost 80% of revenue almost overnight. You didn't just destroy industry, you destroyed the middle class ladder for millions of ambitious Chinese who saw private tutoring as a ticket up. Beijing's youth driven education sector went from buzzing to barren in a single quarter. Now, what about culture in Caoyang district? Film, music, art, the soft power heartbeat of the capital. They are barely breathing. Censorship killed storytelling. Box office numbers just collapsed. Small theaters shuttered. Music venues gone. Even the artsy coffee shops that used to be packed with screenwriters and designers are half empty. The same thing for foreign investment. The Caoyang skyline still looks rich, but inside those office towers, half the desks are gone. Multinationals either downsized or shifted regional HQs to Singapore or even Bangkok. What is left is a self referential bubble of domestic firms afraid to take risks. Now, what about tourism? Beijing should be the tourism powerhouse of China. The Great Wall, the Forbidden City, the Summer Palace. Nowadays, even domestic travelers say Beijing is overpriced, overpoliced, and underwhelming. Instead, people are flying to Harbin for ice sculptures or Zibo for barbecue. Restaurants in Beijing suffered a nearly 90% profit collapse. 90%. That is structural collapse. Now, the population collapse. A city is its people, and Beijing is bleeding people. Population peaked in 2016 and has been shrinking ever since. And this isn't just retirees leaving, it's young working age people, the kind who keep a city alive. Two massive self inflicted wounds accelerated the decline. First, the infamous 2017 low end population purge. In winter, Beijing officials evicted tens of thousands of migrant workers with barely 24 hours' notice. Bulldozers knocked down entire neighborhoods. The Beijing government used the word low end to describe these people. They were the delivery riders, cooks, shopkeepers, and construction crews that essentially kept the city running. Remove them, and you rip out the city's circulatory system. That is how unbelievably stupid the Beijing officials are. And then there's the Xiong'an new area fantasy. The idea, move non-capital functions like factories and their workers 100 kilometers away to a brand new city. The result, businesses left, workers followed. Beijing aged fast. Now 20% of residents in Beijing are over 60. That's 1 in 5. A demographic drag that kills economic dynamism. Add to that tech and education layoffs, an expat exodus, and you get empty streets, dead malls, and an economy in freefall. Now, some of you may wonder why the official number for Beijing still looks fine. Here is Beijing's magic trick. The city is packed with state-owned enterprises that earn money nationwide. That revenue gets counted as Beijing GDP, even if it's made in Guangdong or Xinjiang. So on paper, the capital's GDP looks healthy. But the real economy, small businesses, service jobs, and the consumer sector is rotting. Small business profits down, job opportunities disappeared, consumer confidence non existent. Scratch beneath the glossy GDP, and you find horror neighborhoods and residents hoarding cash out of fear. Beijing is still standing, but without its people and spirit, it's no longer a capital. It's an exhibit, a monument to what it used to be.
So
So,
that's what it
Beijing,
is.
stay asleep.
So what
The
he
rest
says.
of us will turn off the lights on the way out.
So if Beijing stay asleep, the rest of us will turn off the lights on the way out. But if you heard what he said, it's very interesting. Especially the breaking down of the tech sector, educational tech sector. You know, I still remember 2 years, 3 years back when it was broken overnight. One day, Xi Jinping passed an order, and overnight, $2 trillion of wealth was just vanished. People went out of jobs. Finished. Same thing with the property sector. So what is NZ Zhejiang, the alternate city to Beijing, where people are being forced to go, and that's another vital effect. I've done a video on that. That's why I said, look, if this is the state of the capital of a nation, what will be the rest of the nation? Right? Let's get ahead. Look at the exports. Someone was saying, oh, they have a $1 trillion surplus. I agree with them. I agree with all of you that they have a $1 trillion surplus. I did mention in the beginning, there are certain areas you can't touch China. We'll never touch China in India. Look at the US exports. They're just down, 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 and down. And they're exporting to places where they don't get profit. Right? Interestingly, this chart I keep showing. This explains the Chinese trick. This is the export quantity. It is high. This is the price, which is low. They might have a $1 trillion surplus, but what is it earning them? And why is that $1 trillion surplus come? It's come because they're not importing anything. Look at the import. Look at the import here. For the past 1.5 years, the gap between the export and the import quantity is increasing. Naturally, there'll be 1 trillion. Next year, it will be 1.5 trillion. But at some point, that not importing will hit them. Because unless you import, you can't export. That is why I say it has run out of steam. Why am I doing all this analysis? I am not comparing India with China. India will be what it is, forget it. But this country is our neighbor. He's sitting on our land. Someday I have to take that land back. How do I take it? When do I take it? How do I make the assessment that China is strong or not strong? Why should I, who a career army man, learn economics of China? Because he's my enemy number one. I mean, of all things, Chinese exchange traded funds are investing in US stocks because the returns in US stocks are more, not in their own stocks. And China has put a quota that you can't give more. Why? If they buy more money in US stocks, the money will go to USA, not to them. When you peel out the layers, you'll see a different picture coming. This is the latest clip I got from Bloomberg. And Bloomberg today says China is in recession, which I said 10, 15 days back.
These days in China, people are looking for cheap eats. That's because a lot of people are feeling kind of broke. Discount delicacies like these have gone viral, especially at affordable spots like this Japanese restaurant, Caesarea. But meal deals aren't all China's picked up from Japan. The whole economy is looking disconcertingly similar. Stagnant growth, a burst real estate bubble, falling bond yields, a sluggish credit market, and an aging population. Not to mention price growth, close to zero. And it's pushing ordinary Chinese to be frugal at a moment when policymakers desperately need them to spend.
就现在看来，我觉得可能不会有前2年这么好的一个时期了，就是可能会越来越往下的去下滑。
While China's present economic malaise echoes Japan's at the turn of the millennium, some fundamental differences offer optimism that recovery is possible.
If you look at some of the things that have happened more recently, I think that suggests that there's a possibility that China could see the sort of innovative breakthrough, the technological advances that could really change the trajectory of the economy in the near future.
They hope. Naturally, people like Bloomberg or American things will say there's a hope that China will recover because their money is stuck there. They can't let China go down. They can't let China recover. Remember the story. So you will find America doing a double speak. It is us who have to make that assessment where China is. And more importantly, our government wants to deal with China. You have to be very clear whether you want to bail him out or not. Involution, price drop. People say, oh, he's got $1 trillion surplus. भाई पैसा तो बनाओ उसमें ये तो है ही नहीं. Look at what he says.
China's economy is facing a new threat. In most countries, governments complain when prices are too high. But in China, government's angry that prices are too low. This has come about due to a phenomenon called involution. Companies are cutting prices to gain market share. That's forcing everyone else to do the same. As a result, profits have plummeted, and no one's market share is any higher. This fight for survival has gone beyond normal market competition. That's because many of the firms have been nurtured by China's local governments. Industries like solar panels and lithium batteries have become world-leading. But this has resulted in an oversupply of these goods and not enough customers to meet the demand. One example is the car industry. There are now 130 domestic car companies battling for sales. Discounts are so steep that you can buy this electric car, the BYD Seagull, for less than $8,000. That might sound like a great deal, but households should think twice before being too happy about cheap prices. As profits have come down, wage growth has stalled, and employment looks weak. China has been here before. A decade ago, it also suffered another long spell of falling industrial prices. Back then, the government cut capacity in industries like steel and coal to limit production. It was a crude measure, but effective. Prices rose and profit margins increased. But this time around, involution is more widespread. Companies involved are often privately owned, so the government has less control over them. They also operate in high-tech sectors with shiny new facilities, not like the dirty, outmoded plants that the government shut down last time. An alternative response to involution is just to flood foreign markets with goods. But trading partners are pushing back. Ultimately, the best response to falling prices is to boost demand, not to curb supply. China's leader, Xi Jinping, is wedded to his vision of China as a manufacturing powerhouse. Even if customers are hard to find, manufacturing is a big part of China's economy, and he doesn't want it getting any smaller. If that's the case, Mr. Xi won't solve involution without a bit of interest. China's economy.
So there's a problem that involution won't go. Involution won't go. You can't consume. People are not taking credit. They have just come to a standstill. The only thing they can do is produce and export. The day they can't export, they're done. And the day is not far because there's a limit. How much can Sri Lanka take? How much can Pakistan can take? They can be indebted. So that means the debt will be high. As it is, most of these BRI countries are under debt to China. By taking Chinese goods, they'll be more under debt. Their economies are just reviving. So if they take on all these cheap goods into their country, their economy will collapse. So you'll see this is what you're going to see in 2026. And this is critical for us because the way the Chinese economy goes, the Chinese behavior with us will change. We are trying to get technology from China. China is trying to sell items to us. They don't want to give technology, but they want your markets. We don't want to give them markets, we want technology. Where does this equation go? And all our efforts to get technology from China so far have failed. Solar panels only. Right? So we have an issue. And this circle which I keep talking of, people save, put it in banks or in bonds. The government takes that money because they're buying government bonds at the end. They give subsidies for cheap manufacturing. Cheap manufacturing is required to get jobs, and those jobs are at lesser, wages, and those lesser wages are going into people who have to save for their tomorrow because of the lesser wages. It's a circle, and this circle they'll not come out unless government stops injecting money into manufacturing and puts it into saving, or both. Government can't do both, it can only do one. It is not prepared to do because of political reasons. And this is where China is stuck today. So what are you having? You're having a country which has got a poor people and a rich state. Not only a rich state, it's a belligerent state. And today morning only I spoke about China with Sandeep Unithan. Why it will be a constant problem for us. Why it will be it is one of the top 10 challenges in terms of security. In fact, the second after Pakistan. Just think of this country. It has got a huge but declining population. It cannot consume. These are the final points I have. This is where we are ending 2025 for China. It's got a large economy which is cratering with reduced prices. Huge military with poor leadership. And weapons are suspect. That is coming out in Thai, Cambodia war and more. With us also, HQ9, if today evening only I was saying, now they're trying to peddle some aircraft. That aircraft Bangladesh doesn't want to buy. They're gone for Euro Typhoon. They have a huge industry which doesn't give them profit, and jobs are reducing. The unemployment in China is going up. They have leading technology which is not giving them any returns. High speed rails, all that. They have the biggest inventory of houses with no occupants. Biggest network of high speed railways with no travelers. They have a leadership which there's no continuity. What happens if tomorrow Xi Jinping goes? There's no one to follow. They're a rich state with the poor people. That's what I end with today. I hope you like this. I'm going to do a series. We'll talk of India also. We'll talk of India tomorrow. We'll also talk of Pakistan. We'll talk of India, US. At the end of the year, where are we? Where do we go from here? Right? I thought I'll put across all these. Yeah, some of you might not believe it. It's okay. I have no problem with it. Don't believe me. Don't believe me because, after all, if you feel China is the best country in the world, so be it. You can go and stay there. You can suck off them. Do what you want. I'm not going to convince you. But I have to put across these points, analyze it, not because China is good, bad, or ugly, because China is my adversary. Remember that. At the end of the day, I have to deal with this adversary of ours across the border. I'll finally get down there. So, that's the point. At the end of the day, I'm a Fauji. Yeah? Let's be very clear. I have to I've always dealt with the Chinese across the fence. So tomorrow we're going to talk of this. There's this guy called Mario Nawfal who, yesterday gave out a tweet that China humiliated India in 2020. So I'm going to tell him through this video of mine tomorrow what is this humiliation all about or not. Who got humiliated? And this is where I keep saying, even with Pakistan and with China, our information and strategic communication is weak. And the Western commentary keeps painting us as weak. And we have to break out of that syndrome. So we'll do that tomorrow morning. And this fellow, Mario Nawfal, has given this tweet of his based on a article about by Wall Street Journal on our infrastructure in the Himalayas. It's a good article. You must read it. But it paints half a picture. It's only half a picture. So we'll talk of infrastructure along the LAC also tomorrow. I'll first talk of what Maria Nawfal talks about humiliation. I'll have to recount what happened in 2020 and 2022 so that we put that in perspective. And then, if time permitting, I'll tackle the infrastructure or I'll do infrastructure separately. It'll be some kind of a travelogue because we'll talk of infrastructure. Right? So, fine. Join me tomorrow morning. Till then, have a great day. Do subscribe to Ghana Shot. If you like this video, press the like button. And when you subscribe to Ghana Shot, press that bell icon. And also, do join me as members. The more, the better. Right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Jai Gopal Venkatraman, for becoming a YouTube member. IMF doubts India GDP. No, not China. 16% GDP. Today's 5%. Well, I don't know what you're trying to put across to me. Even if IMF doubts India's GDP, okay, not 8.2%, you're still 8%. You're still 7.8%. You're still the fastest growing economy on earth. That can't be this thing. So have some balance in what we are talking. Okay. Right. Thanks a lot, Mohan, for becoming a YouTube member. And also Patiala Pegs. Thanks a lot for becoming a YouTube member. Right. I'll take a few questions right from top. We'll see where we are. Yeah. Is Emperor Z is true greatest to be named after Napoleon Hitler? I have a heart. Give me a break. He's hardly anything. I like the thumbnail of this video. Perfect. Sets the entire summary even before the actual discussion starts. That's a fact. Uh, the thumbnail conveys a lot. There's no doubt. Yeah, Amitesh comes and says Pentagon reports are saying and everything, different things. Go to Pentagon. You go and sit in Pentagon and open their computers and see what they say and be happy with it. You shouldn't come here. Okay? या पेंटागन ऐसे तो यूएसए के कॉमर्स डिपार्टमेंट में बोला था कि हम इंडिया को घुटने या सेम थिंग या आई एग्री विद यू लेडी बर्ड हारू गुड मॉर्निंग एंड गुड इवनिंग एंड फेलो व्यूअर्स जीत नमस्ते थैंक्स अ लॉट तमिल हिंदू हाय जय हिंद Manish Dhawansa, Ghana is still in British Stream era. China is making electric batteries. Yeah. I agree with you. Because you must go to China. That's all I can tell you. Because you don't deserve to be in India then. You have to understand. What did you put this commentary even before I started. That's the problem. That's the problem with all our Indians. We're not prepared to wait before you comment. Weak Indians do this. What did I say? Yeah. Do you feel the nationalism of Chinese people is much stronger than the Indians? Secondly, do you feel that the general enthusiasm of Indians is momentary? Look, the nationalism of Chinese people is strong, but how strong will it be when they are under stress is a question mark. History suggests they're not strong. After all, every country of their, every empire of theirs broke because people rebelled on rebellion. They've had times when there was warlordism. The whole country was split in the Beijing period at the turn of last century. So there is no evidence to suggest that they're more nationalistic than anyone or not. Today, the communism whips nationalism out of them. But tomorrow, if the communist contract is broken, we don't know where it will go. The enthusiasm of Indians is not momentary. I see this change which has happened in India. If you've seen the change in India from what it was in the 70s till date, it is marvelous. I feel the young Indians feel more Indian than we felt as Indians than when we were young. So I'm quite hopeful about it. Right? Typical Indian narrative: every China slowdown equals collapse. I've not said they'll collapse. Did I say? Again, you are putting the cart before the horse. Data without context is comfort food. Fine. You're a Chinese acolyte. I can see it. Okay. I can't stop you. Have your fill of the Chinese. Yeah, Ashok Vajpayee, good evening. Thanks a lot. Yeah, you call it recession, we call it adjustment. That's what the moment you said I understand you're from China. Thank you. I hope you shall take into account the US Defense Department reported present to the US Congress focusing on China. Yeah, I have done that. Don't worry. Today morning I spoke of it. Today morning, Ashok, I spoke of it in my talk with Sandeep Punithan. Yeah. Yeah, ये तो पक्का चाइना वाला है यार. Anyway, so there's no point. Hats off for you for the research analysis. Thank you. Okay. Jai Hind, sir. Thanks a lot. Indians building roads and airstrips all across the northern frontier. I'll talk of this tomorrow. Or infrastructure, which is very good, and there are already effects on ground. We'll talk of it tomorrow. Yeah, there are a lot of Chinese and Bangladeshi people in chat. Yeah, the damn good. Let them come. Let them know. Let them know where their country is. These chaps are all coming to troll me. I have no problem. This is the reality of their country. Yeah. Yeah, the last biggest real estate company in China is folding. 50 billion US dollars in debt. China economy is collapsing. There's no doubt about it. Okay. Told my friends 2 years ago that the situation was much worse than what General Shankar was saying, but they laughed at me at that time. I watched a video with a right-wing man named Stupid Achint. Oh well, that's his choice. Right? They are in a very bad shape. They're probably in the worse shape than what I'm painting. But they have a good propaganda machinery and they've got their hooks into the Western system. The Western system can't let China go. If China collapses today, and it can, okay, Western economies will collapse. So they're not letting it go. But at the same time, they can't continue with them. Sir, an economic matter, you should take a neutral position. Even if you take a neutral position, this is the case. I'm not even taking a neutral position. I'm taking a China position. This is all from China. भाई ये बताओ, all this data which I get from China. I don't get from England. I don't get from USA. I don't produce it. I get from China. I get from Chinese sources. National Bureau of Statistics is Chinese. Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sunil. I went to study Russian. Later, I returned and became a regular member of Ghana Short. Thank you. Yeah. So great are China's weapons that Pakistan chose to ceasefire despite 11 air bases. It could not reply. Not only that, after that, you see this, their pivot to USA. They're not prepared to buy Chinese weapons. That's the point. Vanke is the country, the company which is going down. I agree with you. Are we doing anything proactive in dealing with China, given the bad state of its affairs? Part of my larger question. Neighbors giving us opportunity on a platter. Look, this is the question. This is one of the things which we have to sort out in 2026. This is one of the challenges. Peaking powers or slowing down powers or collapsing powers or declining powers like China will give problems to us, especially when Pakistan and Bangladesh are in trouble. So we have to be careful lest we get hit. That's the point. Yeah. I live in US, and although majority of items in US are made in China, whenever I buy, I look made in China and try my best avoiding. Alternate buy and return hurts more. Yeah. Yeah, you have really rattled some Chinese and Bangladesh. Just too bad. That's fine, no problem, not an issue. Uh, yeah, yeah, we made them surrender. US just confirmed it for them. I agree with you. Mm. In Agra, on the name of environment, they closed. Yeah, I agree with you. Environment was a problem, but environment was not a problem that they couldn't be solved. That you have to get a chap who's owned a factory. He showed me the factory. And today that factory is a warehouse for Chinese glass items. That's the point. Namaste, sir. Jaira, Sri Jairam. Aloo ke parathe are in season this winter. Aloo grows everywhere except in locations without water. I agree with you. Yeah. The medicines Bangladeshis are using is Indian. Um, yeah. In Gujarat, sari printing industry suffers because of environment law. I agree with you. There's a problem. There's a problem in our country which we have to sort out. That is a different story. And we'll talk of it. Also, I would like to talk about how India is ending its year tomorrow. Okay, investment already consumes 40 to 50% GDP consumption is suppressed. Oh, guys, my lights are gone, so I'll stop now. I'll not take on questions now because, like I said, there's a metro station which is being built near my house, and you know that at times they put the lights off. So I'll talk of this entire thing. We'll take it forward tomorrow. Till then, have a great day. Get back tomorrow morning. We'll talk of infrastructure and what happened in 2020 and whatever that guy Mario Nafal, good, bad, or ugly. He might be a good chap, bad chap. I couldn't care a damn. But he's got a large following and he keeps getting on social media and he's making bad statements about India. He needs to be answered. So join me back at 9 o'clock about what happened in 2020 and beyond. Till then, have a great time and enjoy yourself and Jai Hind.